gentlemen, and tarnished of all ages, it's finally time for the ultimate boss-killing build. Don't get me wrong, we've done plenty of ridiculously powerful builds in the past, many of them excelling at killing bosses in particular, but nothing has ever been quite as comfortable or silly as this one is, at least in my opinion. With that said, how would you like to be an absolute walking tank? And I don't just mean tank as in soaking up damage, I mean tank as in that metal thing with the tracks that also has a cannon on the top, because the cannon is extremely notable within this build. So what's going on here then? Well, the whole thing is based around Blasphemous Blade for two separate reasons. Firstly, it does a load of damage. Even with minimal buffs, this thing hits at very long range very reliably for 2000 damage or above, as long as your opponent isn't immune to fire damage. But that's not all it does. Everybody knows about the offensive ability of this weapon. People use it for that reason. It is known as one of the strongest out there for a reason. But today we are also heavily focusing on the defensive qualities of the weapon as well, and that is what makes this such a lovely, well-rounded build as a whole. When you kill an enemy while having this sword equipped, it heals you for 4% of your maximum health as well as 40 flat HP points, which is nice, it's not bad at all. It makes clearing levels with this an absolute breeze. But the weapon skill itself, Taker's Flames, is the big deal here. When you hit an enemy with this weapon skill, not even kill, just hit with the weapon skill, it heals you for a whopping 10% of your maximum health and 150 flat HP on top of that. Within this build, we have a bunch of vigor stacking going on, and so put simply, with our HP total with everything active, that translates to healing 443 health every single time you hit one enemy with this skill. On top of that, as you can see, we are in full bullgoat armor, and the result is that while using this, as long as you can avoid the bigger attacks that the meteor bosses will put out, you will never have to use a Crimson Flask again.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
The result is that you can allocate all of your flash charges to FP regain, which just means that you should never lose the ability to use this weapon skill in a reasonable situation, which again translates to massive damage and even more healing all in itself. On top of this, we are using the Greyoll's Roar Dragon Incantation, which when activated does a nice big pop of damage in an AoE around you, but on top of that, it also reduces enemy attack damage by 20%, which is massive, and then also increases their damage intake, as in the damage that you do to them, by 10%, which again is quite meaty, and that lasts for 60 seconds. So all you have to do is use this once per minute, and you get an overall 30% swing in tankiness within your favor. On top of this, it gives you a ton of poise on startup, so it is really unlikely that you will even be knocked out of the animation once it's started. To recap the ethos of this build then, we have tankiness from Greyoll's Roar, tankiness from full bullgoat armor, 60 vigor to reach the proper soft cap for HP gain, a couple of other buffs to our HP that I'll get into afterwards, and then Blasphemous Blade, which not only does loads of damage, but also heals you for nearly 450 health every time you use the weapon skill. Sounds nasty, doesn't it? That's because it is. If you're wondering about PvP, that's definitely not the focus of this build, as it undoubtedly is built from the ground up for longer form encounters with meteor bosses, such as the New Game Plus runs that you might be doing, but that said, it still does work great in PvP. The tankiness is obviously quite good in this scenario, and the damage of Blasphemous Blade is still insane, so as long as you can hit with the weapon skill, you'll find quite some success within these game modes. So how does this all come together then? What is every little thing that we're using to make this as strong as it is? Well, first off is the blade itself, of course, and this is traded for with the Remembrance from Rykard in the Round Table Hold. And then in our offhand, we are using the Erdtree Seal, as this is just the best faith scaling sacred seal, and we are heavily weighted towards faith for this build. To get this, simply head to the little prison cell located at this location under the Prison Town Church Site of Grace in Volcano Manor. In our secondary main hand slot, we have the Dragon Communion Seal. You'll want to switch to this whenever you cast Greyoll's Roar, but make sure that you cast the spell itself with your left hand with the Erdtree Seal. Doing this gives it the high scaling of the Erdtree Seal, but also the 15% bonus to Dragon Cult incantations from just having the Dragon Communion Seal out. To get this, simply go to the Fringe Folk Hero's Grave dungeon before the first step, Site of Grace, and head up to the highest point within. Defeat the enemy here and you'll get the seal. Easy. Then of course we have the armor, which is the full bullgoat set simply due to being the tankiest and highest poise armor set in the entire game, and you get this from completing the assassination quest for Patches in Volcano Manor. After that we move on to our talismans, and first up is one that is never excluded from a weapon skill based build, the Shard of Alexander. This simply gives you a 15% boost to weapon skill damage, which is of course quite massive. To get this one, if you somehow don't have it yet, just complete a 3-step questline that starts in the desert where you defeat Radon, then moves to the the lava pit southwest of the Seathwater Terminus site of Grace, and then find Alexander one last time near the Dragon Temple Lift site of Grace in Crumbling Fair and Missoula. After that, we have the Erdtree's Favor +2 talisman, and this one gives you an extra 4% boost to your maximum HP, 9.6% to your max stamina, and an 8% boost to your equip load, which eases the endurance requirement of this build just a little bit. This one is found in Lane Dell. After you've turned it to ash, go back to the city from the mountaintop of the giant side, and then you'll reach this area, with the talisman itself being at this specific location, in this corner. Then we also have the Dragon Crest Great Shield talisman, which significantly boosts your physical damage negation stats and aids our quest for tankiness. And this one is found northeast of the drainage channel site of Grace. Just follow the tree branches and archways this direction until you reach the roof of the church-looking building, drop down into the hole, and you'll see a chest on the balcony to your left containing this talisman. Then finally for talismans, we have the Crimson Amber Medallion +2 for an 8% boost to our max health pool, and this is found directly southwest of the capital of Ash, site of Grace. Simply drop into the sewer gate here and pick it up off the beam you land on before dropping further. Then we come to a simple item, your equipped Great Rune. In most builds, this is up to personal choice and varying encounters, but there is one that just makes too much sense not to mention for this in every situation, and that is Morgut's Great Rune, which gives you a whopping 25% increase to your maximum health when you use a rune arc, stacking multiplicatively with our other health increases, hence why we have nearly 3,000 health when fully prepped for battle. With that, let's talk quickly about our wondrous Flask of Physic, and in here the options are quite simple as well. First, the Flame Shrouding Cracked Tier for a 20% boost to your fire damage, and thus our weapon skill for 3 minutes, and this is dropped by the boss located at the northwestern minor Erdtree within Caelid. Then secondarily, we have the Crimson Spill Crystal Tier, which boosts your max HP by 10% for 3 minutes after drinking, and this comes from the boss located at the minor Erdtree in the Valley of the Altus Plateau region. With that, all that's remaining now are spells, so let's go through them quickly. Of course, as with any build that is physically capable of fitting them in, we have Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength. Golden Vow boosts all damage that you do by 15% while also reducing incoming damage by 10% for 80 seconds after casting, and it is found on the Corpse Stench Shack on the eastern side of Mount Gelmir. Flame Grant Me Strength boosts both your physical and fire damage by 20% each for 30 seconds after casting, and is found behind Fort Gale in western Caelid. Then finally, of course, is Greyoll's Roar, which is purchased from the Cathedral of Dragon Communion after you've defeated Elder Dragon Greyoll, who takes up like half of Caelid, so it's a bit hard to miss them. With that, you now know how to get every single piece of equipment to make this fully function, and the modus operandi is simple. Before a fight, use a rune arc, cast Golden Vow, drink your wondrous flask, cast Flame Grant Me Strength, then drink a cerulean flask. Start the fight with Greyoll's Roar with both of your seals equipped, then swap to Blasphemous Blade and just start spamming the hell out of the weapon skill. Dodging isn't even really required outside of the bigger, nastier moves, but of course doing so will make your kills both faster and easier. Outside of this, we of course have to talk about the attributes for this build, and it is a fair bit higher level than we normally build around at level 200. The bare minimum that you can run all of these things together at is 178 if you want to use all the components and also have full Bulgode armor, but at this level you can only cast the weapon skill twice before drinking a flask. If you sacrifice your armor a bit, you can drop down even further in level, but 200 is the absolute sweet spot for this, which, considering it is mainly built as a boss killer for things like New Game Plus, is a pretty reasonable point to be at. With that then, our attribute split is quite simple. 80 Faith is what the weapon skill scales with exclusively, then 60 Vigor to hit the soft cap here, 22 Strength and 15 Dexterity is required to use our weapon, and then 17 Arcane is required to use our Greyoll's Roar incantation. 52 Endurance is required to use our armor and weapon together, which is quite a hefty cost. Once you have reached this though, pump your remaining points into Mind just to let you throw out Taker's Flames like no tomorrow, and you'll achieve a state of power that few in the Elden Ring universe can claim. And that just about does it, everyone. An absolutely ungodly level of power in a build made to kill gods. Ridiculous tankiness to damage, a consistent way to regain massive chunks of your health while also dealing loads of damage, and no real weakness in sight. I hope you enjoy using this. If you make it, it's really worth trying out. It should have no problem carrying through any enemy on any New Game Plus difficulty that isn't extremely resistant to fire. Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.